We've been following a historic day on Capitol Hill. The House of Representatives has handed off the articles of impeachment against President Trump to the Senate. The 7 impeachment managers, handpicked by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, physically walked across Capitol Hill to deliver the articles to the Senate. This will officially allow the Senate to begin its impeachment trial, which is expected to start on Tuesday. Donald Ritchie is the Historian Emeritus of the United States Senate, and he joins me now from Washington. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So if you could start by laying out, first of all, for our viewers, what the Senate trial will likely look like.
Well, the senators will have to decide on the rules for the Senate trial, so there may be some adjustment to this one, but they will follow precedent for the most part. And that is that they will allow 24 hours or so for the managers from the House of Representatives to make a case, provide 24 hours to the president's lawyers. Senators will not speak. They will sit in their chairs and be quiet, but they will send up questions to the chair. And the chair will not be the vice president or the president pro tempore, but it will be the Chief Justice of the United States. This is provided for in the Constitution, that he comes across the street to preside during impeachment trials.
And remind us, if you could just elaborate, what exactly will his role be, Chief Justice Roberts' role be during the trial itself?
Well, like everything else, it has evolved over time. There have been 3 presidential impeachments. There was President Andrew Johnson in 1868, in which case the Chief Justice played a very active role in taking over and making decisions. By the time Chief Justice Rehnquist came, the things had changed. The presiding officer of the Senate wasn't really running the Senate anymore. The senators were, and the parliamentarians were advising the presiding officer. So Chief Justice Rehnquist realized that he would have to play a much less of an active role than his predecessor had. And so he did, and afterwards he said, "I did very little, and I did it very well."
Well, Democrats have demanded that Republicans call witnesses in this trial. In Andrew Johnson's impeachment trial, there were 41 witnesses. In Bill Clinton's, there were 3. How do past impeachments inform the debate on whether to have witnesses at President Trump's trial?
Right. When they impeached Andrew Johnson, Johnson made no objection to members of his administration testifying. And so, as you mentioned, 40-some-odd members came out and spoke. At the time of the Clinton impeachment trial, they really felt that they'd done a lot of the work through the Starr report. And the question was, what else could be added to this? And there was also a very strong feeling on the part of most of the senators that they did not want Monica Lewinsky to be on the floor of the Senate answering questions. So there were 3 people, including Lewinsky, who took depositions, video depositions that were added in. And in the end, it really didn't add anything extra to the discussion. All those issues had been hammered out considerably in advance. So there's a question today as to whether or not the witnesses could add anything extra. What's different now is that the president objected to members of his administration testifying before the House committee and exerted executive privilege.
Well, Democrats have also criticized Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell for coordinating with the White House on the trial. Is that at odds with the Senate's rules?
Well, no, I suspect that the president's party has always tried to coordinate with him about what's going on in the Senate. President Andrew Johnson had very few members. He had, I think, less than a dozen senators were Democrats when Johnson was impeached. But, of course, he had his supporters on Capitol Hill. He had members of his staff. He had lobbyists and others trying to work things out for him. Senator Daschle, who was the Democratic leader during the Clinton impeachment trial, worked very closely with Senator Lott, the Republican leader, to make sure that it was a fair trial. But I'm sure he kept the Clinton White House fully informed as to what they were doing. What's different today is that the president and the majority of the senators are the same party, which was not true during the Clinton trial.
In our final minute here, I want to ask you about the media questions. Congressional reporters are also protesting potential restrictions on the media proposed by the Senate in covering this trial. What are the precedents there, and how has the press covered previous impeachment trials?
impeachments have always been big business for reporters. Reporters have rushed to the Capitol in great numbers. Back in the Andrew Johnson trial, the reporters who covered it said that they were so harassed, they were so busy, they were so anxious all during that period, that given the choice, they would much rather cover the Gettysburg battle all over again than the presidential impeachment trial. By the time President Clinton was impeached, the press was even larger, and it was dealing with every possible means of broadcasting the news, including the Internet. We had quite a few Internet reporters who came to the Capitol for the very first time for the Clinton impeachment trial. There are so many that one of the great problems is where do you put them? And because today cell phones can record, they can photograph, they can take film, so they've really tried to restrict where people can go. They put ropes up around the members of the press to try to keep them from going much further. I remember Helen Thomas, who was a longtime reporter here in Washington, who hated being behind the ropes, and she said they'd put ropes around our necks if they could get away with it.
All right, Donald Ritchie, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
My pleasure.